Hey, g'day, it's Prezzo. Thanks for stopping by. Now this is episode 2 of building the Cleveland Racer vintage toy car. This is the original here on the left, and in the last episode I made a replica of this as a 3D model. And from the 3D model I was able to make a 3D printed pattern and also a core box. In the core box I made 3 of these sand and epoxy cores, and these will form the hollow space underneath the casting, or at least I hope it's going to. Now I was going to build 4 of these sand and epoxy cores, but I figure it's worth actually trying to make one of the castings first. Now maybe it's going to be successful, in which case I only need 2 of these anyway, and if it doesn't work I've got to back up, and it only takes a day to make another core. So what I'll do now is going to go ahead and make a mould, and we'll pour one and just see what happens. Yeah, I might get lucky, it might work first time. We'll see. Okay, it's not the prettiest mould I've ever made, but I think it's going to be functional. So the metal will come down the sprue on this side here, fill up this runner. These are the two gates going into the cavity, and when it fills up it should go through these gates on the other side and up a rather large riser. So I'm going to put this aside and I'll assemble the core into the cope, and then I'll invert this onto the cope and then flip it back again. Okay, in theory that should work, so let's melt some metal and see what happens. I'm pretty sure that was a fail. I could see that the metal didn't come up through the riser as I was putting it down through the sprue. So in desperation I just dumped some down the riser as well. It'll neat up in the middle, but it's almost certainly going to cause a cold shut. That's where the advancing edge of the molten metal just freezes and doesn't go any further. So I sort of expected it, but we're going to have to try something different with the gating, or putting in vents, or maybe pouring it much hotter. I actually poured that at about 730 degrees C, which is much higher than I would normally pour aluminium. But it's also very cold. It's middle of winter here. It's only been about 10 degrees today, so that doesn't help. But we'll wait and see. I'll turn it out and we'll see what we got. I can already tell it's a disaster. You want to see the other side? So that side there looks okay, but there's a big hole around the other side. Well, actually not a big hole. Let me get it out and I'll show you. Can you see that? So we got about, what's that, 90% there? Isn't that annoying? This happened to me before. You sort of get almost there and you see that. But you know what? That gives me some hope that this is doable. Maybe I just need to pour it a lot hotter. I don't know what the downside of that is. But let me get this cleaned up and I'll show you close up. Well, here's the debrief. That side is not too bad. The texture on the casting itself is pretty poor. There's lots of texture from the sand mould, not quite sure why. And then around this side here you can see where it completely didn't fill. And there's also a cold shut just here. So you can see that sort of a crease line in the material. So that would have filled after this surface here froze off, and that's where I poured the metal down through the riser, and it met up with this previously closed off surface. But the core has done its job. Let me see if I can get that out of there. And that's fairly typical of what happens with these sand and epoxy cores. You'll get this sort of blackened surface where it's just simply burnt away, but that actually helps it come out. And you can see here where that hole was. So it's still got the original sand and epoxy colour. And I'll wash that, but the inside is not too bad. And it's nice and light. So I reckon we got about 90% of the way there. But clearly I'm going to need all of those sand and epoxy cores. I'll have to make one more. And the interior here came out really good. There's a little bit of broken away sand down in there, but I could clean that out with a Dremel. And this would polish up okay. You know, I do need to do a lot of work on this afterwards to try to get a, sort of reasonably glossy finish on the aluminium. Wait till I give this one more wash and I'll show you. Alright, just for fun, I went and cut the gates off this side here and I filed all of that smooth, and then I had to go up polishing the surface. So I just started with a file. Then I moved on to a coarse Scotch-Brite wheel, and it seems to be going okay. I think we can get a finish similar to what you see there. And obviously that defect there, that's quite bad. We can't do anything about disguising that. I guess if you could TIG weld into that little defect there, you could probably file it off and you'd get a pretty good finish. But I can't TIG weld, so I'm going to have to do a better job of preparing the mould. And I was just curious to see how much shrinkage we got. So if I put these edge to edge at the front there and have a look at the back, you can see that the one that I cast is about 6 millimeters longer than the original. But I'm not too bothered about that. We're not going to see these side by side anyway. So what worked well? Well, the core worked great. I think that's way better than what I was expecting. All of this interior detail here worked out really well. Surface finish, yeah, there's places where there's a lot of defects evident, especially in these sharp edges around here and so on. But then the original, had those same defects as well. So I'm going to have to rethink the way I did the gates and the runners, and I'm going to have to think about the size of the sprue, trying to get the metal in here as quickly as possible. I may have to pour it a bit hotter than what I did, and I know it's not good foundry practice to pour the metal in so quickly that you get turbulence, but in this situation I think we've just got to live with that. So I'll have another go tomorrow, but yeah, it sort of gives me hope that this is possible. Yeah, no, we'll do another one tomorrow. that's looking much more promising. Yesterday when I poured one of these, this riser didn't fill at all. This time I poured a lot quicker, it was a lot hotter. I've used a bigger sprue, and when I take this out I'll show you what I've done with the gating. But yeah, I've got a feeling this one's worked. While we're waiting for that to cool down, I thought I'd show you the upgrade that I did on this thermocouple and pyrometer. So this is an improvement on a previous design that I made. On the original, this was made of an aluminium tube here, and with holding this in the open part of the furnace for any length of time, there was always a danger that the heat from the furnace would actually melt or soften that aluminium tube. So this is now steel tube. It's actually an old curtain rod really. And at this end I've put a carbon tip. So it's a piece of carbon rod. It's been drilled out to take the stainless steel sleeve on the thermocouple, and it means that the wire from the thermocouple is now fully shielded all the way back up to the other end. And on the previous one, the stainless steel sleeve, the woven sleeve that protected the wire from the thermocouple, was exposed to the flame. But this time we got sort of triple shielding, I guess. And at this end here I've just made a bracket from 3D printed plastic and aluminium to hold the reader, and it's just nice and compact. It's easy to hold, easy to read, and I think I poured that last melt there at about 740 degrees C. I was reading it at 750 when I took it out, but by the time you get it put down on the bricks and you take the slag out, it's probably cooled down about 10 degrees. But certainly that was hotter than I would normally pour aluminium, but I'm hoping it's going to pay off. Hey, that looks successful. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. Oh no. What's happened? Oh, I think it's all right. Let me get it cleaned up and I'll show you. Alright, this is what happens if you celebrate too early. So I took this out and had a good look at it, and I was satisfied that we didn't have any holes in the surface of the casting. Then I turned it over and had a good look here, and there's an area where there's a void, and that's a critical part of the whole casting, so that's unacceptable. I'll have to do this one again. And the change that I made was that I used a bigger diameter sprue. So this is the original sprue pattern that I would have used. This one is bigger. It means you can get more metal down through there more quickly, but it also means that you get sort of more turbulence, and I'm suspecting what happened was right at the edge of that gate, the increased flow of metal has just eroded away the sand mould, and that's what's caused that void. So what I'm finding is really hard is when you're ramming this pattern, you've got to be careful you don't hit the pattern with the ramming tool. But you've also got to be able to compress all of that sand that goes around that sharp edge all the way around the edge of the pattern, and I'm finding that difficult. So that's something I need to work on. But we're getting closer. The texture is not good, but I can file and sand, polish all of this back. That's not really a problem, but you have got to have 100% of the finished pattern as a casting. And if you get holes, it's just, there's nothing you can do about it. Alrighty, so I'm going to make up some more cores, and we'll just keep at it till we get two good ones. See, Mark, that's why we can't have nice things. All right, pretty sure this one's good. Let me get it cleaned up. I said that last time though, didn't I? Alright, well, it seems perseverance pays off. This is the first one out of a batch of 3 that I consider to be successful. So the casting is 100% there. There are no broken bits or eroded away edges or anything like that. And although the surface finish isn't brilliant, I don't care. I can polish that and sand the surface, remove all of that texture. That's not a problem. And after the last failure, I was thinking to myself, if only that edge wasn't so thin where the metal runs in, it could probably fill the mould without any danger of breaking away the sand. Then I thought to myself, you idiot, doesn't need to be that thin. You can add bits on to form gates and then cut them off later. So that's precisely what I did. So on the pattern here you can see these extensions that have now been added on. These were just 3D printed and they were modelled on the original pattern, and I only printed the part that extended out past that pattern there. They got glued on, it was all prepped and sanded and painted and so on. But what that does is it sort of extends the part where you're likely to get damage away from the piece that you want to keep. So you're sort of sacrificing this bit here. If anything goes wrong, it'll happen out here, and you've still got the original casting there intact. So seems like that's worked. So what I'm going to do now is I'll get another mould made up while the furnace is still hot. I've got 1 core left, and if I'm lucky I'll be able to get a second one of these, and I'll just basically repeat the process. Hopefully it all turns out good. So there you go. Not a total wasted effort after all. Alright, looks like there's going to be a number 5. Something went wrong here. That's weird. This side where the metal flowed in is perfect. Yeah, it just didn't form there, right at the front. Alright, I'll make another core, we'll do it again. Got to get lucky soon. Alright, this is number 5. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Oh. You know, I was convinced this one was the one. Why? I poured this one really hot. I measured it like 760 degrees in the furnace, poured it in as quickly as I could, and for whatever reason that's happened again. Something bad's happened at the front here. Not sure what happened. That's weird. There's another failure just here. I didn't run into this area here. Oh. Okay, do it again. Okay, I think I'm going to finish this video here. Now, as it turned out from these 6 castings that I did, number 3 was the best. So this one here is completely usable. There are almost no defects in this at all. This will clean up to make a really nice little model car. And then it just got progressively worse from there. So these 3 here were the last 3 that I did. This one here, I replicated exactly what I did with number 3, and it looked good when I took it out, and then I noticed that it hadn't formed the boss where the axle needs to go at the front there, so that was a failure. And then it just got worse. So this is the last one that you saw me do. and I have no idea what happened in the front here. I can only think that part of the mould fell out when I was assembling the two halves of the mould, and I didn't notice. But that in itself is not necessarily a problem. I could cut that off and clean that casting up and it would be fine. But then something really bad happened here, big hole at the back. So again, this one's complete scrap, can't do anything with that. And this is the last one I did, and in desperation I thought I'll try something different. So I actually inverted the pattern in the mould, so this part of the casting, or this casting itself, was in the cope of the mould. And I had two vents, and the idea was it was going to fill up from the bottom and push the air out the top as it went. But this one, you know, I don't know. I've got no idea what was going on. This one here I poured really hot, and the idea was that it would fill the mould before the metal had a chance to freeze, but I'm still getting these massive holes in the casting, and now I'm thinking that that was part of the problem, that the excessively hot metal was vaporizing the surface of the core, and that's what's causing these gas bubbles in the molten metal. So when I saw this, I nearly cried, and I thought, I'm giving up. And I almost never give up on a project, but I could chase my tail with this for a long time and get nowhere. So what I've decided to do is to go back to number 2. So this is the one where it didn't form here, but I'm going to try filling this with an aluminium brazing rod. Now, I had a bit of a play with this yesterday on this one here. So I tried brazing up a little fissure that was in the casting here with that brazing rod. It's finicky, it's hard to do, and if I have no success with that, what I'm going to do is to fill this with some sort of epoxy filler, and I will powder coat this particular car. So this is the one I'm going to keep, and the good one, this one here, number 3, is going to my grandson. And I've got a picture of my grandson somewhere. Oh, here it is. Yeah, he's due in October. But this one is going to him, and this one will be fully polished in aluminium, and this one here is going to be powder coated in an aluminium powder coat. It won't look the same, but it'll be acceptable. So that's my fallback position. So I've got 2 castings I can use. I've got 4 that are scrap. The other 4 are going to get melted down to make the wheels. So that's it for now. Yeah, disappointing, and I knew it was difficult casting to do. So in hindsight, I'm probably lucky I got 2 that I can use. But yeah, a lot of learning to be had from these failures, but I don't want to go there again. I've had enough of that. So let's move on. In the next video, we're going to have a go at making the tyres for the wheels. And for all those people that said that they're just O-rings, well, they're not really. They're actually a proper rubber moulding, and it's got a bead around the inside of the tyre. And also, it's very difficult to get O-rings in a cross-sectional diameter bigger than about 4 millimeters. And maybe they're available somewhere in the world, but certainly not here in Australia. So I will have a go at moulding the tyres, and that's what we'll do next time. We'll make the mould, see if we can make a few tyres. And then, yeah, let's just put all this bad stuff behind us and move on. Okay, it's Prezzo signing out for now. Thanks for watching today. I'll catch you next time. Cheers. Just noticed that this female eastern grey kangaroo, we noticed that she had a joey in the pouch, and she's lying down here today, and we've been able to see the joey. There it is. And it's been sticking its head out, and it's completely pink. So it's still really, really young. But hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll see it outside the pouch. Yep, there it is. Obviously feeling a bit restless.